Hey everyone, Sam Ovens here, and in today's video I'm going to tell you what Steve Madden shoes can teach you about natural selection. Now I know that sounds kind of weird, but stick with me for a moment, because if you truly understand the lesson in this story here, and if you implement it in your life and in your business, it's going to have some profound effects, and it's really going to help you a lot. The story goes, back when Steve Madden Shoes was just starting out. So Steve Madden Shoes is a female shoes company, and back when they were just starting out, they had one of the coolest business strategies that I have ever heard of. So they had one store in San Francisco, and they had another store in Manhattan. Two places where early adopters and two places where trend setters and influencers are hanging out and shopping. So they had those two stores, and what they did is they would have their shoe designers create about 100 different designs of shoes. Now they designed a full range of about 100 of them, and they only produced one of each, one shoe of each style. And then what they did is they sent those shoes to their two flagship stores, and they displayed them in there, and they let people come into the stores and look at the shoes. And what they did was genius. They looked at which shoes people were interested in. And what happened is every single time they did this, most people just fell in love with about 2 or 3 shoes out of the whole 100. Most of the 100, just people had no interest in it all. And there was a small segment where people had some interest, but there were these just hot shoe designs, and there was only about 2 or 3 of them in every lot of 100 that people were obsessed with, and they wanted really badly. And this is genius, because what Steve Madden was able to do is create a huge range and then test it in a market that's representative of essentially the whole market. So just using Manhattan and San Francisco, that small test and that self-created microcosm that Steve Madden created, that is going to be representative of the whole market. So he was able to test, without having to produce millions of shoes, which ones would be winners. And people would say, I want to buy these shoes, and the shop owner couldn't sell them because they only had one of them. And people were kind of angry, but that was fine, because they only let down about 100 people or so, and they would take their names anyway for back order. And then after they had done their tests and they had worked out which shoes were true winners, then they would call up their suppliers, their manufacturers who were in Mexico, I think at the time, and they would order them in bulk. They'd say, these 3 shoe models, we need a ton of these things. And then what they would do is they would call up the distributors, which were the shoe stores inside of big malls and things, and they would say, look, we've tested these shoes and we know these are going to be hot and we know these are going to sell like crazy. And sure enough, the distributors agreed to buy a small shipment. They put them in their stores and they sold like crazy. And that is basically how Steve Madden went from selling shoes out of the trunk of his car to having a business which is worth hundreds of millions. The main lesson in this is really natural selection. So Steve Madden knew that most of the shoes that he was going to design were going to be flops. And what natural selection is that it's survival of the fittest. It's the world and the universe, it has this way of ignoring most and only paying attention to a few. And I'm sure you've been into a clothing store before, and the one thing that you want in there is probably they don't have your size and it's sold out and it's on back order, but there's just the rest of the store is just full of the stuff that no one ever tries on and no one ever wants. That's the law of nature, and in business and in life, most of the things that you do are going to fail. And the secret to it is to test small first. So Steve Madden, created the whole range of 100 different shoes, but he only made one of each. He put them in a store in a hot market, which was going to be representative of the whole market, and then he found out what those winners were, and when he had those winners, he produced a ton of them and sold a lot. In business, if you were to take this and apply it to your own business, what you could do is, if you're thinking about coming up with a new name for a product, or a new price for a product, or if you're thinking about anything, one of the best things you can do is just run a test through Google AdWords or through Facebook pay-per-click. What you can do is, if you've got a product and you're thinking of 4 different names, you can create 4 different ads on Facebook or 4 different ads on Google pay-per-click, and you can run those ads and see which ones people click on the most. And what's amazing is that the distribution isn't going to be normal. The distribution is going to be skewed. You know, one of the names that you come up with, or one of the price points that you come up with, is going to have probably 80% of the interest, and the others aren't really going to have much at all. This is just the way everything works in life. And this strategy that I just told you, this is exactly what Tim Ferriss used to choose the title of his book, The 4-Hour Workweek. He came up with, I think, a list of 20 different titles for his book, and he ran Facebook ads, and he was testing different names, and the one that got the most clicks and the one that got the most attention was The 4-Hour Workweek. And you know, Tim Ferriss was essentially using the same rule of natural selection that Steve Madden used, but instead of using it to choose which shoes to produce in bulk, he was using it to choose a book title. Now, you know, there is 1,000,001 different ways that you can use this lesson of natural selection in your own business and in your own life. And it's, you know, if you use it, it will have a profound effect on you. That is the story of Steve Madden and natural selection. And what I challenge you to do this week is, if there's one critical thing in your business, whether that's your price or your offer or the name of a product, is run a small test like Tim Ferriss did and like Steve Madden did through Facebook pay-per-click. You know, run a small test, see what natural selection selects for you, and you know, use it as a way to make decisions in your business. Instead of using your gut, you know, use natural selection to figure these sorts of things out. It will have a profound effect. If you're watching this video anywhere else other than my blog, what I want you to do is head over to samovens.com right now. That is where more blog posts like this are, that's where more videos are, and that's where the comments section is. Now, if you've liked this video, if you've enjoyed it, hit that Facebook like button up the top, and then leave me something in the comments section. If you've got a question for me, write it in there and let me know, and I check all of the questions and respond to them personally. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.